In the high-stakes world of the auto industry, success is never guaranteed. Even giants like Ford can stumble, and sometimes, they stumble spectacularly. Today, we're talking about a car that has become legendary for all the wrong reasons. This is the story of the Edsel, a car that cost Ford an astonishing $400 million and became the textbook definition of corporate failure. How did a project with so much money and talent behind it go so disastrously wrong? The story begins in the mid-1950s, a time of booming optimism and prosperity in America. The economy was strong, families were growing, and the open road called. Ford Motor Company, one of the big three automakers, was doing well, but they spotted what they believed was a gap in the market. At the time, Ford's brands were structured in a clear hierarchy. You had the affordable Ford, the mid-range Mercury, and the luxurious Lincoln. The problem was the massive price and prestige gap between the Mercury and the Lincoln. Ford executives noticed that as customers became more affluent, they would often trade up from their Fords and Mercurys, but instead of buying a Lincoln, they would switch to a competitor like General Motors' Buick, Oldsmobile, or Pontiac. Ford was losing loyal customers to the competition simply because they didn't have the right car to offer them. The solution seemed obvious: create a new, mid-priced brand to slot perfectly between Mercury and Lincoln. This new division would capture those upwardly mobile buyers and keep them within the Ford family. The project was codenamed the E-Car, with E standing for experimental. Ford poured immense resources into the E-Car project. They conducted one of the most extensive market research campaigns in history. They hired top advertising agencies and even consulted a Pulitzer Prize-winning poet, Marianne Moore, to come up with a name. She suggested fantastical names like Utopian Turtletop and Mongoose Civique, which were politely declined. After reviewing thousands of suggestions, the company chairman, Ernest Breech, decided to name the car after Henry Ford's only son, Edsel Ford, who had been president of the company from 1919 until his untimely passing in 1943. This was a sentimental choice, but one that Edsel's own family, including his son Henry Ford II, was reportedly not enthusiastic about. Nevertheless, the name was set, the Edsel was born. With a name and a market position decided, the design process began. Ford's stylists were given a simple but challenging brief: make the Edsel recognizable from a block away. They certainly achieved that, but not in the way they had hoped. The most defining, and ultimately most infamous, feature of the Edsel was its front grille. The design team wanted something bold and vertical, to contrast with the horizontal grilles that dominated car design at the time. What they ended up with was a prominent, upright oval in the center of the car's face. Almost immediately, the public and press had other names for it. Critics derided it as looking like a toilet seat, an Oldsmobile sucking a lemon, or a horse collar. This was not the sophisticated image Ford was trying to project. The grille became a running joke and the most memorable part of the car for all the wrong reasons. The rest of the car was packed with what Ford believed were futuristic innovations. There was the Teletouch drive, a set of push buttons for the automatic transmission located in the center of the steering wheel hub. This seemed like a great idea on paper, a true space-age feature. In practice, it was confusing for drivers who were used to a column-mounted shifter. Many drivers would instinctively reach for the center of the wheel to honk the horn, only to accidentally change gears, which was both startling and dangerous. The system was also complex and prone to mechanical issues. Other features included a floating-style speedometer that would glow red when a preset speed was exceeded, and a trunk that could be opened from the driver's seat. These were novel ideas, but they were overshadowed by the car's controversial styling and questionable ergonomics. The design, intended to be a masterpiece of modernism, ended up being a collection of awkward and conflicting elements. Ford's marketing machine went into overdrive long before the car was even available. They launched a massive teaser campaign, shrouding the car in mystery. Ads proclaimed, "The Edsel is coming," building a level of public anticipation rarely seen for a new product. Ford spent millions ensuring that everyone in America knew that something big was on its way. On September 4, 1957, dubbed D-Day, Ford unveiled the Edsel to the public in a grand spectacle. Dealerships across the country opened their doors to reveal the much-hyped car. The initial public reaction was one of sheer confusion and disappointment. The car that people saw in the showroom did not live up to the monumental hype. It wasn't a revolutionary vehicle from the future, it was just another 1950s car, and a rather strange-looking one at that. The public felt let down, and the negative press about the toilet seat grille had already poisoned the well. But the Edsel's problems went far beyond its looks. The timing of its launch could not have been worse. Just as the Edsel hit the market, the United States entered a sharp economic recession. Consumers who were once eager to buy big, flashy new cars were suddenly tightening their belts. People started looking for smaller, more fuel-efficient, and more affordable vehicles. The Edsel, a large, gas-guzzling, mid-priced car, was the exact opposite of what the market was now demanding. Furthermore, the very market segment Ford had aimed for was shrinking. The distinction between low-priced and mid-priced cars was blurring. Ford itself had contributed to this by introducing the new, more luxurious Ford Fairlane, which competed directly with the lower-end Edsel models. The Mercury line also offered new models that overlapped with the Edsel's price point. The Edsel found itself squeezed from all sides, competing not only with GM and Chrysler but also with other cars from its own parent company. Quality control was another catastrophic failure. To save money, Ford decided not to give the Edsel its own dedicated factory. Instead, Edsel cars were assembled on the same production lines as Ford's and Mercury's. This created chaos. Assembly line workers, unfamiliar with the new parts and procedures, often made mistakes. They were expected to switch between building a Ford and an Edsel with different tools and components, leading to frequent errors. As a result, the first Edsels that rolled off the line were plagued with problems. Reports flooded in of oil leaks, sticking hoods, trunks that wouldn't open, and push-button transmissions that failed. Some cars even arrived at dealerships with missing parts. The Edsel quickly developed a reputation for being unreliable, which was a death sentence for a new car brand. Sales were abysmal from the start. Ford had projected selling 200,000 Edsels in the first year alone. In reality, they sold just over 63,000. The numbers were even worse for the 1959 model year, with only about 45,000 cars sold. Ford tried desperately to save the brand. For the 1959 models, they toned down the controversial styling, making the vertical grille smaller and more integrated. They also dropped the problematic teletouch transmission system. But the damage was already done. The Edsel name was synonymous with failure and bad jokes. Finally, in November 1959, just 2 years and a few months after its grand debut, Ford officially pulled the plug. The 1960 Edsel model had been in production for just over a month before the announcement was made. In total, just under 111,000 Edsels were ever sold. The financial loss was staggering. Adjusted for inflation, Ford's $400 million disaster would be equivalent to over $3.8 billion today. It was a failure on an epic scale, one that taught Ford and the entire auto industry some very hard lessons. The Edsel became a case study in how not to launch a product. It showed the dangers of overhyping a product, ignoring clear market shifts, failing to listen to negative feedback, and compromising on quality. The name Edsel itself entered the American lexicon as a synonym for any commercial venture that is a spectacular flop. Ironically, time has been somewhat kind to the Edsel. Today, the very features that made it a failure have made it a sought-after collector's item. Its unique, quirky styling and its infamous story give it a certain charm. The Edsel is no longer seen as just a failed car, it's a piece of automotive history, a rolling monument to one of the biggest corporate blunders of the 20th century. It serves as a powerful reminder that in the world of business, even the biggest names can get it spectacularly wrong. Thanks for watching. If you found this story interesting, be sure to subscribe to my channel, Ude Repo, for more deep dives into fascinating histories.